Hills Sanatorium,
one of the most haunted places on Earth.
Hospitals are meant to heal, to comfort, to save lives. But under flickering lights and sterile silence, they become something else entirely. Empty hallways stretch too long. Whispers echo with no source. And in some hospitals, the patients never leave. These places reek of something more than decay. They hold trauma so deep, it warped reality itself. From ghostly apparitions to rooms where time seems to stop. These are the 7 most terrifying hospitals on Earth. And if you think Room 502 is just an urban legend, you haven't heard what still breathes behind its closed door. Number 1. Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Kentucky, USA. In the mist-covered hills of Kentucky stands a decaying monument to pain and death. Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Originally opened in the early 1900s to treat tuberculosis patients, it was once a place of hope, but as the death toll rose into the thousands, that hope rotted away. Over 6,000 lives were lost within these walls, and some say not all of them left. Visitors report seeing a little boy rolling a leather ball down the hallway. A bleeding woman in a hospital gown screams for help before vanishing into thin air. Lights flicker in sealed-off rooms. Doors slam without warning. Footsteps echo from empty corridors. A hearse was often seen outside, delivering coffins, even when no bodies were recorded. But none of that compares to what lurks in room 502. In 1928, a young nurse was found hanging from an overhead pipe. She was pregnant, unmarried, and allegedly ashamed. But rumors persist that she wasn't alone in that room, that something watched her die. Then in 1932, another nurse fell from the window of room 502. Whether she jumped or was pushed remains unsolved. But strange doesn't stop there. Other staff reported hearing voices whispering their names in that room, only to find it completely empty. Some claim to have seen figures pacing back and forth behind the glass, even though the room's been locked for decades. Visitors feel sudden nausea, intense dread, or even get scratched without explanation. One paranormal investigator collapsed inside the room and woke up with blood dripping from his nose. No medical cause found. To this day, room 502 is considered the heart of Waverly's darkness, a place where death lingers and sanity unravels. Now, in an unbelievable twist, Waverly Hills is being turned into a luxury hotel, and room 502, it's still there, waiting, watching, breathing. So, would you dare spend a night in the room that made 2 nurses vanish forever? Or will it be your silhouette pacing behind the glass long after checkout? Number 2. Taunton State Hospital, Massachusetts, USA. In the forests of Massachusetts, a forgotten hospital stands, its past steeped in darkness. This is Taunton State Hospital, once a sanctuary for the troubled, now a place where horror lingers. One of its most infamous patients was Jane Topan, a nurse who confessed to killing at least 31 people. But here's the real horror. Some say the doctors and nurses were even worse than the patients. For years, rumors spread of satanic rituals performed in the hospital's basement. And the worst part, they didn't just use objects in these rituals, they used patients. Unwilling, defenseless, trapped in a place meant to help them. And after all those rituals, something stayed. Visitors report seeing a shadowy figure lurking in the basement. It moves unnaturally, clinging to the walls, watching from the ceilings. Some say it's not a ghost, it's something older, something darker. Would you dare step into that basement? Taunton held more than just Jane Topan. Another patient, Anthony Santo, claimed voices in his head told him to kill. He was locked away here just like so many others. But what if the real danger wasn't the patient, but the ones in charge? The hospital was abandoned after multiple fires, but its past still lingers. And Taunton State is only the beginning. Next, we go even deeper into the madness of the next disturbing asylum. Number 3. Beechworth Lunatic Asylum, Australia. In the hills of Victoria, Australia, there's an abandoned building with a past so disturbing that it still lingers in the air. This is Beechworth Lunatic Asylum. Once a place for the mentally ill, now a place for the dead. It operated for 128 years. More than 9,000 people died inside its walls, some from illness, some from experiments, and at least one in a way no one can explain. A young girl was thrown from a high window. No one knows why. No one knows who did it. But she never left. She's been seen wandering the halls, silent, staring, watching the living with empty eyes. And she's not alone. One of Beechworth's most infamous patients was James Kelly, the uncle of Australia's most feared outlaw, Ned Kelly. James was sent here after an attempted murder, forced to spend his final years trapped inside these decaying walls. He died in 1903, but visitors swear they still see his shadow lurking in the asylum's corridors. And then there's the locked cells, rooms where patients were left to die alone. Step inside, and you might hear them, whispering, breathing. Would you dare spend a night here? Number 4. Athens Mental Hospital, Ohio, USA. In the quiet town of Athens, Ohio, stands a building meant to heal, but remembered only for its horrors. This is Athens Mental Hospital, once known by a darker name, the Athens Lunatic Asylum. When it opened in 1874, its walls promised care, but behind those locked doors, only madness. For over a century, patients were subjected to brutal treatments that today would be considered inhumane. Electroshock therapy, ice baths, restraint chairs, and worst of all, lobotomies. Crude surgeries that turned living people into hollow shells. They weren't cured, they were erased. The asylum grew so crowded that death became routine. Over 1,900 patients were buried on the hospital grounds, their graves marked only by numbers. No names, no memories, just a field of the forgotten. But even that isn't the hospital's darkest tale. In 1978, a female patient vanished inside the asylum without a trace. Days passed, then weeks, months. It wasn't until a full year later that her body was found, locked inside an abandoned wing of the hospital. She'd been trapped in complete isolation. No one heard her scream. No one came. She died alone, in the dark, and the mark of her final moments, a human-shaped stain on the floor, remained for more than 30 years. Visitors who saw it claimed they could feel something watching them, as if part of her was still there, trapped, waiting. Even after the hospital shut down in 1993, something remained behind. Locals say whispers echo through the old corridors. Shadows dart across walls that haven't seen life in decades. And in the cemetery, some say the numbered gravestones are sinking, like the dead are pulling themselves back into the earth. Athens isn't just haunted, it's scarred. But what if some places go beyond ghosts? What if suffering leaves behind something worse? Because next, we travel to Old Changi Hospital, where prisoners of war still scream from beyond the veil, and the halls drip with the trauma of something far more evil. Number 5. Old Changi Hospital, Singapore. In Singapore, there's an old hospital that no one wants to enter alone. This is Old Changi Hospital, a place where strange things happen and the past never leaves. It closed in 1997, but its past is far darker than its empty hallways suggest. During World War II, Japanese forces took over the building and turned it into something else, a prison for captured soldiers. But what happened inside? Survivors later spoke of torture, suffering, and death. And those who never left, some say their spirits still remain. Hundreds of prisoners of war were held inside those walls, and some were never seen again. People who visit today report seeing shadow figures outside the building, as if someone is still patrolling the area. Some believe they are spirits of old security guards, making sure no prisoners escape, even in death. But what's even more terrifying? Some visitors claim they didn't just experience something strange inside, they brought it home with them. A presence, a shadow, a feeling that someone was watching them even after they left. Is it possible for a haunted place to follow you? Or is there something far darker, something unseen lurking inside old Changi Hospital, waiting for its next visitor? The shadows in its halls, the whispers in the air, could they be more than just remnants of the past? And now we turn to Whittingham Hospital, England, a place where whispers of horrors far beyond imagination echo through its abandoned rooms. The doors may be locked, the windows boarded up, but those who dare approach speak of a strange, unsettling feeling, like being watched, even from a distance. Number 6. Whittingham Hospital, England. In the heart of England, behind the towering walls of Whittingham Hospital, a dark secret was kept. Once the largest mental asylum in Britain, what terrifying things happened inside? In 1967, complaints surfaced. Patients were locked in tiny rooms for days. Some were dragged by their hair, others were left outside no matter the weather. And then there was Ward 16. One treatment was especially disturbing. Nurses wrapped a wet towel around a patient's neck, tight enough to make them pass out. But that wasn't the worst. Some patients had their clothes set on fire while they were still wearing them. An investigation followed. The head nurse and matron mysteriously took early retirement. 2 male nurses were caught stealing. Another was arrested for manslaughter after beating a patient to death. With so much pain trapped inside these walls, does something still linger? Visitors report cold spots, whispers in empty hallways, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched. Some even claimed to have been pushed by unseen hands. A place of healing, or a place that should never be entered again. Number 7. Royal Hope Hospital, Florida, USA. In Florida, an old hospital stands with a dark secret buried deep inside. What haunting mystery lies within the walls of Royal Hope Hospital? This hospital was once a Spanish military hospital, treating soldiers from the late 1700s to the early 18th century. But when workers later tried to repair the water lines beneath the site, they made a shocking discovery. This hospital was built directly on an ancient Native American burial ground. What happens when a place of suffering is placed over a sacred land? Not only this, visitors report hearing groans and shouts from empty rooms. Beds move on their own. Glass bottles slide across tables without a single hand touching them. The sound of marching feet echoes from an upstairs room, except no one is there. Some have even seen full-bodied figures in military uniforms standing motionless in the halls before disappearing into thin air. Paranormal experts believe this place traps energy, fear, pain, and death, all mixed into one. The spirits of the past never left, and if you try to listen closely, you might just hear them again. Some hospitals stitch wounds and mend bones. Others, they bury screams beneath floorboards and seal suffering behind rusted doors. In these cursed places, pain doesn't fade. It festers. The walls remember. The halls whisper. And long after the last patient leaves, something stays behind, watching. The doors may be closed, but the darkness, it's still awake. So ask yourself, are you brave enough to walk those halls? To face the truth waiting just beyond the flickering light? Because once you step inside, you may never leave the same.